Welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we've got so much to get to. Ton of different action over the course of the weekend. But Caroline, we start with week one reaction. Not real week one, but preseason week one in the NFL is in the books. And that gives us the chance to, it counts. We're going to make it count. That gives us the chance to go good, bad, and ugly. We're going to go through some of the good, some of the bad, and some of the UGLY. You ain't got no alibi from week one. Caroline, I'm going to start with good because it's what everybody's talking about. Ty Simpson, 21 of 25, absolutely carves them up in his first preseason action for 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. Look, if you're a Rams fan, your hope is that you don't see any of Ty Simpson once we hit week one of real football. But this had to be at least a little bit of a confirming moment for everybody that has spent months questioning the draft pick of the 13th overall pick for Ty Simpson. And all of a sudden, he comes in and just looks like he is at a different level in his first preseason action.
Yeah, no, Frank and I talked about this on Friday. Frank Schwab and I, we talked about the pressure meter for a lot of these quarterbacks who are going to be making some of their preseason debuts. And Frank thought there was a lot of pressure on Ty Simpson because of what you just mentioned, so much scrutiny over the first round pick. And I didn't think there was much pressure on him just because there was a collective understanding that also, to your point, we probably wouldn't see Ty Simpson this year. There's also a pretty high likelihood that we won't see much of Ty Simpson next year. This is very much so going to be a slow cook, a slow burn, a slow development of a guy who doesn't have a lot of pass attempts at the college level. But whether you thought that there was a lot of pressure on him or not, Ty Simpson went out there and did the exact thing that you would want any young rookie quarterback getting his first NFL reps doing. Looking like he belonged in the National Football League. Looking like he had at least a solid understanding of the offense and what was asked of him. Ty Simpson had a great debut. Now, I don't think it justifies the pick. I still don't agree with the Rams going with building for and planning for the future in a year where they are clearly in a Super Bowl window. If you're trying to win this year, then you draft somebody in the first round that can actually help you win this year. Ty Simpson's not going to do that. But I think, at that point, you've already done it. You've already made the pick. There's not going to be many things that you can or cannot do to justify that pick while Ty Simpson is sitting on the bench. But the best thing you can possibly do is have Ty Simpson go out there and look like he belongs and look like a first round pick. So I thought that Ty Simpson had a great debut. I'll also throw Drew Aller into the mix. A guy that, frankly, Fixie, I forgot about. When we talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we talk so much about Aaron Rodgers, when we talk about some of these rookie quarterbacks, obviously Fernando Mendoza comes to the front of mind. I forgot about Drew Aller, but Drew Aller had a great outing in his first preseason game. Again, I don't think that Drew Aller is going to be a future franchise quarterback. I don't think that the Pittsburgh Steelers now all of a sudden have their succession plan post Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to have to see a little bit more before I can say that. But I think I saw more good from Drew Aller in one night in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform than I saw a lot of him in a Penn State uniform in his time in college.
Yeah, that is well said by you. I mean, you and I covered so much of Drew Aller for years. Kept waiting for Drew Aller to look like the quarterback everybody thought Drew Aller could be. It was funny to me to finally see him in the NFL acting the way that we thought he was going to look all last year. Remember, going into last year, there was a presumption that he was going to be fighting to be the first overall pick. But we all know that's not how it played out. Why? Because the first overall pick was one Fernando Mendoza, who, by the way, also looked great in week one. As we look at our good, bad, and ugly from week one as a whole, 10 of 16, 96 yards, 1 touchdown, tremendous control. We talked about this, but when we asked Dan Orlovsky what we're looking for, he talked about resetting the feet, getting your eyes across progressions. Dan, his since joining us, has done a couple of breakdowns on TV, specifically where Fernando was doing all of the things that he told us he was hoping to see Fernando do, and he did much of it under center. So I think Fernando gets a big old honorable mention as one of the winners. Reports continue to come out of camp that he is pushing Kirk Cousins and is likely going to be starting even sooner than anyone thought. So from the good, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Let's get some of the bad. Give me something you had that stood out from you from week one of preseason that was just bad.
Fitzy, there was a lot of bad from guys who have zero justification for being bad in the preseason. If some of those rookie quarterbacks went out there and were just stinky, we could say, okay, they're rookies getting their first reps in the NFL. Those things are going to happen. But Tua Tagovailoa being a veteran in this league and being in a quarterback battle at this point, because that's what I would say is happening in Atlanta, but going out there and putting up 24 yards of offense on 8 plays across two
Oof.
drives. You're a veteran in this league. Sure, I know it's a new offense, it's a new team, it's a new arsenal of weapons. I know that Bijan Robinson was only out there for a couple of snaps and Drake London was only out there for a couple of snaps. I know, I hear you boo-hoo to a crew, but I don't really want to hear it because I don't care who's out there, whether it's the ones or if it's the twos or if it's the threes or if it's, you know, Jacksonville County high school players that you're out there with. When you are an experienced quarterback in this league, you're going to have to do a little bit more than that. You're going to have to at least pick up a few more first downs than that when we're talking about a preseason game. So I thought Tua left a lot to be desired. I think there's also a lot of people where I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, that are shaking in their boots a bit after what they saw from Bryce Young. 9 total plays on 3 drives. For those of you counting at home, that's three and outs. Bryce Young put up 17 yards in 9 total plays on 3 different possessions. That's like rookie stuff. That's like worse than rookie stuff. And we're talking about Bryce Young, who just won the division, just got the Carolina Panthers to the playoffs. Everybody in Pantherland was feeling good about how last season ended, that maybe Bryce Young finally got that thing, finally found that next level that everybody's been hoping he would find. And I know it's just one preseason game, and I'm not going to overreact to just one preseason game, but of the one preseason game sample size that we have, it wasn't good.
When you put as much good and bad on tape as Bryce Young has so far in his career, bad in the preseason, I think, is concerning. The best of the best don't have bad preseason games. So I think you're fair in your assessment there across the board, especially for somebody that I'm not willing to say is cemented as the solid truth at the future of the franchise for the Carolina Panthers with Bryce Young. We've just seen too much bad for me to have that level of overconfidence. Speaking of bad, we saw bad from Shedeur. Look, all eyes were going to be on the quarterback battle. We'll talk more about that quarterback battle over the course of the show, obviously. But Deshaun versus Shedeur is one of the big matchups everybody was looking for. Shedeur comes in against the backups, with backups against backups. You see the stat line: 6 of 11, 79 yards, and an ugly interception. There's no nice way to term it. Whether he just lost control of the ball, whether he overthrew it, whether it was a bad read. There's been a million different pieces of speculation as to how it happened. But the fact is, just threw a lame duck really high, really late, and way too far over the middle of the field that turned into an interception on a day that already wasn't efficient enough. So, frankly, for Shedeur, who comes in and needs to have something here, he needs to make a statement. He's trying to catch up in some capacity, or at least, even if they're even, he's tried to break that even with Deshaun Watson. He says the right read just slipped. That's what makes me mad a little bit because of it. I just didn't execute the decision, but the right decision was made. He defends the decision, but either way, at the end of the day, when you are in a paper-thin margined quarterback battle, you can't look as rocky as he looked for much of it to me. So I think Shedeur stands out to me as one of the bad. Now, he'll have the chance against Buffalo starters to right the wrongs of that, but if you were looking for Shedeur to come out and make a statement to the world that he's being undervalued by the new coaching staff, he certainly didn't do that. All right, Caroline, if we've got good and we've got bad, let's go all the way to the UGLY of it all. Give me some ugly that we saw over the weekend. Lots of it, but what stood out to you?
Lots of it. When we were given this prompt, I just kind of had a stream of consciousness of just typing out all of these bad and ugly things that we saw through the preseason. One thing that comes to mind, though, is the fact that Joe Burrow got sacked in a preseason game. What are we doing? I have no issue with starters starting in the preseason, knocking off some rust. You have a new coaching staff, you have a new offense. For the Bengals case, they've historically been slow starters. Like, I don't have an issue. You can't play football scared, and if one of your starters gets hurt in the preseason, that's football. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate part of football. But what are we doing putting the starting Bengals offensive line up against a bunch of fifth and sixth round rookies and Joe Burrow gets sacked? What are we doing with Orlando Brown, who makes top of the left tackle market money, and he just whiffs on some sixth round pick out of Boise State? What are we doing? And I think that's it's bad, period, when your starting quarterback gets sacked against a guy who not even make a roster this year in the preseason. It's made even worse Joe Burrow is an injury prone quarterback that has been behind a bad offensive line for a majority of, if not the entirety of, his career. That this is such a critical year for the Bengals, that this is such a critical year for Zach Taylor and his job security. That they have invested in the offensive line. They've invested money. They've invested picks into the offensive line. The Bengals are trying to upgrade that line, but just from the looks of it, just from that sack in a preseason game, it doesn't give you a whole lot of optimism that this offensive line is as upgraded as it needs to be in order to keep Joe Burrow upright and in order for that offense to be as high flying and high scoring as I think we all believe it can be with all of those weapons that they have.
Well, and I think, frankly, the Bengals have lost most benefit of the doubt at this point. They've managed
Yeah.
to screw enough things up around Joe Burrow for long enough that we look around with this sort of, it's not if, it's when the Bengals are going to find a way to screw this thing up. The Bengals should have Super Bowl aspirations. They are in a Super Bowl window every single year when they have Joe Burrow as their quarterback, and when, frankly, they've invested as much money into the wide receiver position as they have this year. For them to put Joe Burrow at risk in the preseason, for us to see him get sacked, is just a here we go again. There's a Charlie Brown element where I just expect that they're going to go to kick the football and land flat on their backside, because that's what the Bengals have done over and over and over again. I wasn't surprised by that. I'll give you an ugly that did surprise me, though. Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans. And it doesn't surprise me that the Titans were particularly ugly, but Cam was awful in this game. 5 of 12, 57 yards, 56.6 passer rating, 27.2 passer grade. That would be 36 out of 36 quarterbacks this preseason, including some weird heave of the football near his own goal line as he's going down. That was just a stupid decision. Whether you're an elementary school Pop Warner football player, you're playing in high school, you're playing in the NFL. It was the type of throw that the coach will just grab your face mask and mother you know what you when you get to the sidelines, because they cannot believe that you did that. That's what Cam Ward did, and I expected better. Look, Carnell Tate was a big part of why we expected more from the Titans offense, but frankly, I don't want to sleep on the fact that you have a number 1 overall pick in the draft that is yet to look like he has solidified himself as the quarterback of the future. We have a problem if we are going into the second preseason and everybody's looking around saying, man, I'm not really sure if Cam is that guy. When you've got polls out there from Titans media and Titans fans asking what kind of starter he's going to be, and the majority of the responses, even from fans, is like, he might be okay. Like, that's not where we're supposed to be one preseason game into the second season for a first overall pick. You draft a quarterback first overall to be the savior of a franchise, to give you the one drug you need in the NFL, hope. And I look around right now and, man, Caroline, it's hard for me not to feel like the Titans and Cam Ward both look pretty damn hopeless to me.
This has been a trend for the Tennessee Titans over the last, let's just say, 5 years of making all of these swings and all of these moves that are supposed to save the franchise, but it only sets them back even further. Trading A.J. Brown and drafting Traylon Burks was supposed to keep the Titans in contention. Let's not forget, that was the draft after the Titans were the number 1 overall seed in the AFC and they had a bye in the first round of the playoffs. Let's not forget about where the Titans were not that long ago. And then obviously that move blew up in their face. So they fired their then GM, John Robinson, and they bring in Rand Carthon, and then they draft Will Levis, and then that goes horrifically wrong. And then Mike Vrabel gets fired, and they bring in Brian Callahan, and he is a legitimate ding-dong. So what do? They fire him, and they fire Rand Carthon, and then they draft Cam Ward. He's supposed to be the savior. You bring in Robert Saleh. You bring in Brian Dable. You bring in this quarterback whisperer that's supposed to save Cam Ward Ward after Brian Callahan tried everything in his power to ruin him. And then what do we see? Cam Ward looked like he doesn't even belong on an NFL football field in his preseason debut. Now, if Cam Ward goes out there and he absolutely balls out in the regular season and the Titans win the division and they get to the playoffs, I don't think that's going to happen, but let's just live in a hypothetical world. Nobody's going to care what he looked like in his first preseason game. But in year 2, with a new coaching staff, with a new stadium opening up in just a couple of years and very expensive PSLs that need to be sold, this was the year to give Titans fans hope and to give them optimism that they can dig themselves out of this just brutal hole that they've been in so long. But yet again, it just looks like another swing at trying to save the franchise and a massive miss.
Cam Ward looked terrible. The unis looked amazing on TV. We will say that. All right, you know what else is amazing? Good. It's day 8 of 29 days of fantasy. This one might be my favorite. Don't finish last or you're gone. If you ain't first, you're last, right, Ricky Bobby? Yahoo Fantasy Death Leagues are back with a new name and the same merciless format. Each week, the lowest score, they're gone. They're eliminated. Their players go straight to waivers. Last team standing wins it all. This is by far my favorite kind of fantasy league to play. Join a death league today at yahoofantasy.com. That's yahoofantasy.com. All right, from the NFL, we'll get back to some preseason reaction. But coming up next, a big day in the W. We'll tell you about it.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May, because your heart is aflutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with A.J. Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, you know he's getting the ball. You know Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, yeah, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
Caitlin Clark puts up another 20-plus point game. The Fever take down the Dream in Atlanta. It was a wild one. It was an epic one. It had all the drama we could ever ask for. Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Michaela Timpson all showed out in this one too. Indiana now on a 4-game win streak. Caroline, are they the scariest team in the East as we inch closer to the playoffs to you?
I mean, you have to talk about Atlanta. I know that we are fresh off of an Indiana win over Atlanta, but that's just one game and one, anecdotal sample size of the East. I think you have to talk about Atlanta when you talk about scariest teams in the East, because, one reason why I think Indiana is such a great juggernaut of a team is because of their big 3. It's because of Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston. Well, Atlanta has their own version of a big 3 as well, and Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray, and Angel Reese, all 3 of whom are averaging double-digit points. Angel Reese, who's good for a double-double on any given night. Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray, who are just like this cohesive, dynamic duo. But to answer your question, I do think it's Indiana, and I think it's Indiana for a few reasons. Indiana's offense has the capability to be historic. Indiana might have the highest scoring, highest flying offense in the history of the WNBA. And what Indiana is doing now that maybe they struggled with at the beginning of the season, which is why they struggled to piece wins together at the beginning of the season, is now they're playing defense that's good enough. And that's all they have to do with an offense that is as elite as their offense is just play average defense. Get a few stops here and there, get a few turnovers here and there, and let your offense and Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell do the rest of the work. And the other thing that makes Indiana so scary is Michaela Timpson coming out of literally nowhere and dropping 20 points. And Michaela Simpson isn't in that big three, but when you're talking about Indiana and Atlanta and some of these other teams in the WNBA, they all have their own version of a big three, right? So it's what do you have outside of your big three? What do you have outside of your go-to scorers? Well, in Indiana, you have Michaela Timpson that's good for 20 points on any given night.
I think at the end of the day, for me, part of the Atlanta conversation that has to be factored in here, and I was trying to find the shooting percentage over the last few games. Angel Reese has been terrible at the rim. We've all seen it. We all saw the replay last night. She could have won this thing at the end of regulation. We'd be having a much different conversation about how we see the East if Angel Reese could have hit that layup at the end. Like, she was right there. So, look, for me, as much as I want to anoint how well Indiana is playing, they're a game and a half up over Atlanta, and that could have been just half a game up over Atlanta if Angel Reese could hit a wide open shot directly at the rim. They're also only a game and a half up over the Liberty. I think the East is a lot closer than we want to give credit for the East being right now. That being said, I do agree with you. Well, if we were just playing, like I always use this analogy with you, you know this, but if we were playing the video game version of this and I had to pick any team in the East that I wanted to be in the video game version of it, it's Indiana. Indiana has the talent to absolutely beat everybody. And by the way, I think Stephanie White is of late shutting a lot of the critics up when it comes to the way that she's utilizing everybody in this. Indiana played a really good game. But again, I think I can't put enough stress on this. This was a 95-91 overtime win over the Dream that could have looked much differently based on one bucket at the rim.
And also important to point out, Atlanta didn't have Jordan Canada in this one. And no, Jordan Canada isn't that Alicia Gray who can put up 32 points like she did against Indiana. But Jordan Canada is a ball mover. Jordan Canada is a shot creator. And also Jordan Canada is averaging 12 points a game. When we're talking about the margins of some of these games being razor thin, losing out on the production, the offensive production of Jordan Canada, I think is noteworthy. And we're going to talk about Michaela Timpson being kind of that fourth player, that next player outside of your big three, of who else can you offer outside of, you know, the three biggest bullet points on a scouting report. Well, that's what Jordan Canada is for Atlanta, but she was unavailable against Indiana. So important to point out there when we talk about the hierarchy of that side of the league.
And boys, by the way, at the end of the day, I love the fact that we still have drama going all the way down to the end of this thing. All right, we also had a big result on Saturday. Olivia Miles, Asia Wilson showdown. Minnesota takes down Vegas. Start to get a little nervous about some of these losses Vegas has to good teams. 92-87 is the final. What's your biggest takeaway from this one, Caroline?
I have two big takeaways. After Kayla McBride had a 43-point night and dropped 10 threes, we were talking about how we, being, you know, you and me, Fitzy, me and Cassandra Negley on Hoops 360, about how layered and multifaceted this Minnesota team is. It's not just Olivia Miles or Nafisa Collier. It's also a Kayla McBride that can step up and drop, you know, a career night, a WNBA record number of threes in any given night. But also against Las Vegas, we saw Nia Coffey be a massive difference maker. She comes in off the bench, doesn't just put up 12 points, but she also dropped back-to-back threes to take a lead over Vegas and to really kind of be that offensive firepower that they needed in that moment. So that was huge. You know, yet another go-to scorer unlocked in Minnesota. My second takeaway, Olivia Miles is my MVP. Okay, I've been talking about it for the last several months, actually, but I'm just, every sample size that we get, every big game against a championship contender we get of Olivia Miles stepping up and looking like a veteran, like She's the leading scorer on the best team in the league. She was the leading scorer for the Minnesota Lynx against the big bad Las Vegas Aces, fresh off of a championship against the reigning league MVP, who, oh yeah, by the way, has been a league MVP in this league 4 times, in A'ja Wilson. Olivia Miles, it is as simple to me as she is the highest scorer on the best team in the league and consistently puts up big performances in the biggest games. The Lynx have an absolute juggernaut upcoming. But one of those games that when I was looking at Minnesota's upcoming schedule, of the juggernaut that it was, one reason for that was this exact matchup against the Las Vegas Aces in prime time on national television and passed that test. So every new sample size is just another reason that gives me more confidence that Olivia Miles is the MVP of the WNBA.
I wish I could go back in time all the way to 1911, where I would want to I'd want to sit down with Hugh Chalmers. Hugh Chalmers is the person that invented the term most valuable player all the way back in 1911. I want to go back to Hugh and I want to just tell him what a storm he's creating, because MVP is such a debatable thing because of the way it's termed. Most valuable, what equals value? I agree with you that Olivia's been absolutely incredible, but for me, Asia's still the MVP because frankly, I'm looking at it from a very simple standpoint. Who's the one player I think is more capable than anybody else in the WNBA of putting a team on their back and leading them to a championship or any given night a win? That's A'ja, because we've seen her do it over and over and over again. Who's the most unstoppable force in the league that nobody can take away from 99% of the games? Well, that's A'ja. Who's the player that if she were to leave her team today, God forbid, let's just say, I don't ever want to speak injury into the world. So let's just say that, they decide they don't want to play in the W anymore and they retire tonight. Would it have more impact to Minnesota to lose Olivia or to Vegas to lose A'ja? That's Vegas and A'ja to me. So I come back to A'ja Wilson as the MVP because I think she means the most to her team. I think she's the most capable of taking over any game in any night. I think she's the most dominant player night in and night out. Minnesota scares me as an Aces fan. Minnesota scares me because everything you mentioned before is true, Caroline. They're deeper. Mm-hmm. They are better. I think as a team, top to bottom, they are better than Vegas. But we have seen repeatedly Vegas with less turn around and say, you know what? We'll just roll the ball over to A'ja. She will will us through the playoffs, and it will all be fine. So that is why I believe that even though I think Olivia has been incredible this season, I still think A'ja is the MVP.
And if anybody wants to say that, hey, I'm going to vote for A'ja over Olivia for MVP, you're not going to hear much pushback from me because she's A'ja freaking Wilson. And when you say, like, take this player away from their team and they're drastically different, yeah, you take away A'ja Wilson from the Aces, all of a sudden we're not talking about them nearly as much as championship contenders. They're not back-to-back and back again without A'ja Wilson. She's the 4-time MVP of this league. But look at the standings. The Lynx are the #1 team in the league with a 3.5-game lead, and Napheesa Collier just came back from injury. The reason why they're in that spot is because of Olivia Miles. I can make the argument that you take Olivia Miles away from the Minnesota Lynx, and we're not talking about the #1 team in the league with a 3.5-game lead. We're not talking about the Lynx with a championship upside because they wouldn't have had Olivia Miles shot out of a freaking cannon and able to hold it down. And I say hold it down in a very secure spot until Napheesa Collier, the former runner-up MVP, came back from injury. So Olivia Miles is also wildly valuable to her team as well.
Yeah, you saw the standings there too. Fair or not, we're going to do this for the rest of time. Let's remember that currently Olivia Miles' team is 8.5 games ahead of the team that could have taken Olivia Miles with the first overall pick. It's right or wrong. It's what we're going to do. Speaking of overreactions to first overall picks, we had quarterbacks galore in the first round go off in the preseason. What does Chase Daniel think? We'll get some expertise on it coming up next.
We're going to talk about Alan Graves, who looks like a hit of a draft prospect for the Toronto Raptors. Looks sensational, man.
I thought the shot was there. You talked about the percentage, but also most of the shots were off of the catch, above the break. Just a good sign in terms of his positioning.
And I think for the Toronto Raptors, a team that already has so much size, adding Alan Graves to this, it almost feels like some of those championship Raptors teams.
Can't predict the future, and I know that it's a long process and it's not just my decision. But at the same time, I'm going to give the doctors and the coaches every single opportunity they can to let me be out there week 1. And I don't want to miss that game because that's the team that won the division while we were gone. And you want to be out there and ready to go with your teammates. And so hopefully the doctors and the coaches give me the green light and I'm able to go out there with my guys and compete against one of the best teams in the league.
They had to have better details on the back end because that was their greatest qualm last year, especially on third down. They were just a mess. Bad tackling, bad angles, slow to react. And this is a great stat from Next Gen Stats. First opportunity depth of tackle. So the first time they're able to tackle somebody, what's the depth of tackle? Theirs was the second highest in the league last year, 4.9. The Cowboys were the only ones higher. So they were late to react. So there was a perfect stat to match the eye test there. But that just has to get better. More than anything, that's what I'm focusing on with this defense.
I know people talk trash about the PFL and say, oh, because you're in the PFL, you're nothing. The level of fighters in the PFL are just as high as the people in the UFC. And the reason you don't understand that, the reason you don't think so is because you're a casual. You're not a true MMA fan. You don't understand the game as much as you hope or you think you do. If I ever gave a damn about what somebody thought up until this moment, I would not be the champion.
And the only reason I had a job in the NFL for 14 years is because I consistently balled out in the preseason. If you get cut by your own team, that film is your audition for the other 31. I've seen plenty of guys play really well for their team, get caught in a numbers game. That is one of many tweets over the course of the weekend from Chase Daniel, who does a great job of overreacting, sufficiently reacting, and breaking it all down on film. We love all of it. 14-year NFL career, now football analyst extraordinaire on TVs everywhere. Welcome to SEC Nation, by the way. Congrats on that. So, if preseason play matters, how we feeling about Ty Simpson?
I mean, amazing, right? Like you saw what it was. I mean, look at 21 to 25. I think it was 190 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. And look, I do probably overreact to preseason, but it's coming from a guy who spent 14 years where preseason was my Super Bowl. And a lot of guys Super Bowl, like the starters don't play a ton, but you're playing for spots. You're playing for 53 spots on like second and third string, maybe some fourth string guys. So when you can go out there and you can ball out and you can do it, I do think it makes a massive, statement on who you are. And as far as Ty Simpson's day goes, look, he didn't throw the football down the field, but he wasn't asked to. He was asked to run the offense, run Sean McVay's offense, and a lot of bootlegs, a lot of underneath stuff, 2 pinpoint accurate quarterback like touchdown throws. So for me, it wasn't necessarily when I was saying that. And I did this whole Twitter video of Orlowski because I'm like, that whole thing, like Dan's like he's the best rookie quarterback, and so it was sort of like satire comedy when I did it, but then it had like 750,000 views. I was like, whoa, like chill out, guys, like. This is just supposed to be funny, but I was impressed with his command of the huddle. And not just his, like you just go down the list of rookie quarterbacks that played this weekend, including Fernando Mendoza, Haynes King, Carson Beck in the Hall of Fame game, Luke Altmaier. I mean, it was one of those things like, okay, maybe this quarterback class is a little bit better than we think. But Ty, to me, just watching the command and everything that he did, I thought he played the best.
I find the quarterback nature versus nurture conversation to be fascinating. Do this a lot with Patrick Mahomes. Like if Patrick Mahomes wasn't drafted by the Chiefs with Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, a guy that you know very well, and he didn't have the opportunity to sit on the bench and learn from Alex Smith, would he have become Patrick Mahomes? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. We can't rewrite history. How much of Ty Simpson's success that we saw, albeit a small sample size, but it's all we have. How much of that do you think is due to the fact that he's learning from Matthew Stafford and the most brilliant offensive mind in the NFL and Sean McVay? And how much of that is just Ty Simpson could have balled out no matter where he was drafted?
Yeah, that is such a fascinating conversation and a great point by you, because it does come down to fit and scheme and how this quarterback will handle different pressures in a certain scheme. So I would say like scheme and fit. I mean, it's exactly what you're alluding to. Not just for Patrick Mahomes, not just for Ty Simpson, for any quarterback. There's been so many talented quarterbacks in this league that have had bad coaching. I'll say it, bad coaching, or not coaching at all, and they fizzled out. Like, look at like Baker Mayfield. Now, Baker had that 1 year in Cleveland, but he was going left and right and different teams. And if it wasn't for Sean McVay and the Rams, those last 4 games of the year, he wouldn't have signed with Tampa. And I would say a lot of this, and that's why I was so excited, and I think Dano was so excited about the Ty Simpson thing, is because, man, you're going in the first round. So you have a 5th-year option, and you get to sit behind a living legend who I was in a room with Matthew Stafford for a couple years, because Matthew, I think, has got 1 or 2 more years in him, but you don't have the pressure to play. You can go out there, you can, be a true backup quarterback and learn the game. And you heard Ty Simpson a few times, like, man, I'm just like a sponge. Like, I'm soaking up Sean McVay. I'm soaking up Matthew Stafford. Like, I know the quarterbacks coach there personally, Dave Ragone. Like, they're in love with them, and they've been in love with them. And I think they were trying to be so quiet around, like, they were convicted that he was the guy. But I do think, to get to this long-winded answer to your question, I do think, like, it definitely helps that the scheme is very quarterback friendly in LA.
So then what does all this mean as I take that information and I pass it over to Fernando, right? Like, Raiders fans are itching to see Fernando play right away. Kirk played really well in one drive. Then Fernando plays really well throughout the course of his time. I'm going to make you the coach of the Raiders. What is your approach for sit versus start on Fernando Mendoza?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm always of the mind that you need to play, and you need to play sooner rather than later. And you look at, we did a research study, like a deep dive, and without getting too nerdy, like since 2020 or 2019, the average time it has taken a first round quarterback, not the first overall, just a first round quarterback to play, the average time over the last 5 years is week 3. And so people can say, oh, he's going to sit all season. Oh, he's going to do all this stuff. Guys, it's week 3. And that's over 5 years of every first-round quarterback drafted, because you have a new shiny toy in the box and you want to open it up and you want to play. And look, there's a reason they went out and signed one of the best centers in football. Now, the thing that is a little bit interesting about Fernando is, like, look at the schedule. The schedule that Fernando Mendoza would have to face right off the gate. I mean, their first 5 or 6 games are tough games, and Kirk still can play, but make no doubt about it. Like, if Fernando keeps playing like he played in this preseason game and he keeps raising the bar, I mean, I saw a couple plays out there where he's changing the play and he's checking into it. He's like flapping his wings to throw a go ball to the sideline. It was pretty cool to see that, but I'm of the camp, you play him sooner rather than later, and I think that he will definitely play sooner rather than later.
So with that, the value of actually getting live reps, I look at JJ McCarthy, who has 10 starts going into year 3. I look at Michael Penix Jr., who has 14 starts going into year 3. And it doesn't look like JJ McCarthy nor Michael Penix Jr. are going to get very many starts, at least at the beginning of this season. What does that mean for them and their future in the National Football League?
Yeah, the JJ McCarthy one is really interesting because, the Vikings, I think, sort of screwed that one up. You let Sam Darnold walk out. You let Daniel Jones walk out. Both those guys have really great seasons last year. And then, look, I know JJ played 10 games, went 6-4, all that stuff. Just didn't look ready to me personally for a lot of different reasons. And so I think, unless there's something crazy going on, I think Kyler's the best fit for the job. I think that JJ's time in Minnesota is done. Do I think his time's done in the league? No, because usually, going back to these crazy research, this is all the way back to my time in Fox. Usually, first round quarterbacks get 3 separate chances. So he's on chance 1. He's going to get another shot, and he's got all the tools in the world, right? It's usually what happens when you have a guy like this that has all the physical tools. It can be between the ears, and that's a tough thing to get sorted out, because playing quarterback in the National Football League is the most difficult job in the entire world, and quite honestly, it's not close. So for him, I don't think his career is over, but I do think his time in Minnesota is over. And then you go to Michael Penix. I think the jury's still out on Michael Penix. I actually really liked Michael Penix coming out of Washington. I thought he threw one of the best deep balls that I had ever seen in a while. And so, being available is your best ability. He hasn't been out there. And so I think that gives Tua the inside track. Here's the thing about playing quarterback in Atlanta too, is you don't have to be amazing. Like, you have some of the best skill positions and Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They drafted the guy out of Georgia, Zachariah Branch. He's a baller. Decent offensive line. Kevin Stefanski playing under center, all this stuff. So I would imagine that at some point this year, they're going to play Michael Penix Jr. unless they're balling out with Tua. And so it's all about taking advantage of these opportunities when they make themselves available.
Chase, you said earlier playing quarterbacks about between the ears. I hear that all the time from former players. All right, so now I'm going to try and make sense of Jaxson Dart's comments, because Jaxson Dart went into the blue tent after taking a heck of a hit and said afterwards, I'm still puzzled by it, just feeling like every time that I get hit, I find my way in there. He's been in the blue tent a lot, but when you hear a quarterback talk about it like that, what's it tell you about whether or not the sort of the message of saving and protecting yourself is being received?
Well, here's my deal. Like, Jaxson, it wasn't Jackson's fault that he got smashed. There was a free safety pressure. Tyrone Tracy Jr. Completely just whiffed on a block. And I watched that play a few times, and the thing that really stood out to me, and what stands out to these independent neurologists that are on the sideline, like calling down, like, hey, check this guy. The dude stayed down on the ground, grabbed his head. Every time you do that, like, if you're frustrated, if you're not, you see it right there. If you're doing that, you're going to get checked. History, to me, maybe sure it plays a little bit, but all these independent neurologists or these concussion checkers are different for every game. And so when you do that, there's a rule passed. Anytime at all you grab your head or you go down, you're going to get called out and you're going to get checked for a concussion. He missed a few plays, and then the next play, and he throws a touchdown pass. So he's fine. And this is a conversation that, unfortunately, I hate to have, but the mainstream media will continue to have, is like, oh, Jaxson Dart, can he protect himself? Look, I know Matt Nagy. I was with Matt Nagy, who's the offensive coordinator for 5 years, 3 as a quarterback coach for Kansas City Chiefs, 2 as a head coach for the Chicago Bears. And talking to him about this offense, to me, it's going to be built around Jaxson Dart's strengths. At some point, you got to stop babying the guy and saying, hey, get down. Like, eventually, like I mentioned before, the best ability is availability. You got to be available to play quarterback every single week in the NFL. And unfortunately, he hasn't shown that in the year that he's had. So, look, Giants could be, I don't want to say special, but the Giants can, mess some people's schedules up. They have a really good defense. Malik Neighbors comes back, Camp Scannaboo, among other guys. I really like Isaiah Likely. I think he's going to be a beast. But it all depends if Jaxson Dart can stay healthy.
We saw some not so great performances from both of the Browns quarterbacks in the Browns preseason game, both Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. I know you have new roles with ESPN coming up this football season. Congratulations. But I'm going to give you a new job. You are now head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Congratulations. Yep. What do you do at the quarterback position based on the preseason performances from both of these two quarterbacks and your understanding of this Browns team and the expectations? How would you approach this quarterback situation?
Yeah, look, I think it's a constant process of evaluating. And I think the preseason for this situation and this competition, one of the few ones left out there, I think it's going to go down to the very end. I thought that Deshaun Watson had the lead a little bit in OTAs, and Shedeur came back and took it away. Todd Monken said, now it's going to, I remember Todd Monken saying, since I'm the coach of the Browns, I remember him saying, oh, we're going to have it during OTAs. I'm like, you can't tell anything during OTAs about a quarterback competition. And so watching both guys play, I was actually literally just on my iPad breaking this down. It's going to go out on my YouTube channel today. Like, Deshaun played well, and Shedeur, the stats will, it's okay. I'd say for both, like you mentioned, it was a down performance. So, like, until somebody can go out there and take the job, then it's going to go to the wire. If I probably had to guess how it goes, I would imagine that Deshaun would probably get the start week 1, and then Shedeur ends up playing more games than Deshaun Watson. This sort of takes the pressure off Shedeur This sort of puts the pressure on Deshaun. If you were to go Shedeur and then go Deshaun, I don't think that's the best way to go. But a lot of people realize or need to realize, like, this is a big year for both of these guys. If Shedeur can take it by the horns, then maybe they don't draft a guy with their 2 first-round picks next year in 2027. But they do have 2 first-round picks, and this next year's quarterback class is absolutely stacked. So they're playing for a lot.
I'm not sure any game in the preseason gave us more overreaction on both sides than Baltimore versus Philly, right? The Ravens 31 first downs, Philly 6. Philly had 159 yards. Baltimore had 440. I mean, that was gross. All right, so what do we make? Like, look, Eagles fans, certainly a patient bunch. We all know that. Sean Mannion, the new offensive coordinator. What do we make of this? What's the level of panic?
I think there's 0 level of panic. I take each preseason game a little differently. And with the Eagles, and I know Sean was a good player in this league, and extremely smart. The McVay scheme, Kyle Shanahan scheme, that under center, bunch of play action stuff. And so they're not going to show anything. Like, I was talking to an OC, won't name the name, yesterday, and he's like, I can't believe, like, some of these defensive coaches are scheming against us. We're the most vanilla we've ever been. In fact, it was like overly vanilla because we don't want to show anything for preseason. That's the boat I put Philly in. But you could tell, like, Jesse Minter had this team, the Ravens, like, rolling. Here's my thing about Philly, and I've openly not criticized, but I think Eagles fans probably hate me because I just try to tell the truth about Jalen sometimes. And look, I get, like, he played 2 Super Bowls and was the best player in both Super Bowls, and he's Super Bowl MVP, all this stuff. This is a big year for Jalen Hurts because this is the first year that he hasn't had a coordinator to run what fits him. He's going to have to fit in to this Sean Mannion scheme, meaning, he's a much better player at times when they get under center. He doesn't like to do it. He doesn't feel comfortable doing it, but how quickly is he able to get under center? How quickly is he able to pick up this offense? He looks the part in practice, everything I've seen. And so it's going to be a lot of stuff that Jalen is not used to doing. And I do think that getting rid of AJ Brown is actually going to be helpful in ways. It's really hard to say that, but now you can just play the scheme. In this scheme, it's like, hey, it doesn't matter who's who. Like, you're going through progressions. It's 1, 2, 3. I don't care where AJ Brown is. I don't care where all these guys, and they have a bunch of really good skill players. But this is a big year for Jalen.
You guys can check him out. He's on Cameo. You can check him out on Twitter X at Chase Daniel. He's got the YouTube channel out there. Just did his first vlog on it, doing film breakdowns all over the place. And don't forget, Saturdays, you can check him out. Newly added to SEC Nation, part of one of my favorite shows that you could ever check out on Saturdays. Man, Chase, congrats on the continued success. Thanks for making us smarter, man. We really appreciate it. Got to come out and hang. I know you're busy, but you got to come hang out with us again during the season.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Great stuff from Chase Daniel, as always, as he breaks it down. Speaking of great stuff, weekend wow factor coming up next.
And that's really what we get into with the first quarterback I want to talk about, Sam Leavitt, transferring from Arizona State over to LSU. You're going to plug Sam Leavitt into that system with his ability to create outside of structure, his ability to get yards. On the ground, I think you're going to see him really outperform where he's being drafted right now. In a Power 4 only format, I have him as QB5 right now.
We're in a very, very bad time for the perception of college football. There's a fatigue point that people keep debating. Is it because of NIL? Is it because of portal? Is it because of what's going on in Congress? And I think the average consumer, and there's still more average consumers that listen and watch this show than there are industry insiders. There is a fatigue point with perpetual revision of the postseason format. People aren't as stupid as the individuals in this industry seem to think that they are.
Who is your breakout candidate for this year?
kind of think Isaiah Likely with the New York Giants is a really good candidate this year. Kind of wide receiver room that could rotate a little bit and be useful players, but they don't, to me, have one dynamic. Even Fields, who I like, I don't know that he's going to be like a dynamic guy that right off the bus, round 3 rookie, leads the team in targets. I think that could actually be Isaiah Likely. Tight ends on their second contracts have been good bets to make. I think Likely is a good bet to make this year.
How is your recovery going?
It's going good. It's a long process. I think that's what I've learned throughout this entire thing. And so all I can do is be as great as I can be every single day. It's tough. You have to just maximize that day and then slowly get better and better as the year goes on. And so just having the guys back and getting to be back on the football field will kind of get me going in order to get ready for the season.
All right, Joshua Baez did something no player in MLB history had ever done before. 3 home runs in his major league debut, including homers in each of his 3 first at-bats. I don't know how you top that. Baseball's been around for more than 150 years. Nobody had ever debuted like this. It's time for us to do a little going Owen. This is where we take some of the biggest moments of the weekend and we figure out how wow it is. Caroline, you want to do it the right way? I never do the wow as well as you do.
Wow.
So if we're going, look, I can't tell the difference. Caroline's wow and Owen's wow.
It's a gift.
We're going to figure this out, Caroline. Yeah. How high of a wow factor are you giving this one?
Oh, it is absolutely a wow. And if you are a sicko Cardinals fan like I am, then you would have known Joshua Baez's name for a long time because he has been balling out in Memphis too. I mean, Joshua Baez was averaging a home run every 3 games in the minor leagues. If Joshua Baez did in the majors what he did in the minors, he would be top 5 in the league in home runs. And I know you can't always apply that logic, different pitching, different parks. I get it. I know that. Just let me have some fun here. And I think Joshua Baez's debut, at least in a Cardinals uniform, is proof that, maybe I can draw those same kind of conclusions and I can make those kinds of comparisons because clearly, at least at the plate, he was ready for the big time and has been for quite some time. So in a year where it doesn't look like the Cardinals are going to do anything of note, doesn't look like the Cardinals are going to be making the postseason, and if they do, it'll be absolutely down to the wire. What us as Cardinals fans have is hope for the future, for the JJ Weatherholts, for the Jordan Walkers, for the Joshua Baezes to kind of bring the Cardinals into their next golden age. So I think excitement for the young guns is what we have to hold on to, and we have a lot of it.
Nope, not going wild for it. Not doing it. Not giving it a wild. You went too big.
Making history.
Got it. You went too big. Now what? Now everything else from here. Failure. You went too big. There's no way. You got to manage expectations. You got to come. You can get 1 home run.
Were you saying that about Fernando Mendoza's debut in the preseason?
No, Fernando Mendoza's. Well, his first pass was a little high. He left room for improvement. See, you can't go 3 for 3 with 3 home runs on your 3 first at bats. Then everything from there, epic failure. Now it's going to be you've never lived up to the first. Okay, 3 of 4, but his first 3 at bats were all home runs. So what's happening? His 4th at bat, total failure. Now at this point you've set the standard too high. You just got to sort of manage expectations. The more mediocre you are, then all of a sudden you can have those moments. I'm kidding. Obviously, this was epic. This was incredible. Nothing but greatness for him. And congratulations. Got to be cool. One thing I never sleep on with your debut moment is you think about how kids have dreamed of this moment for their entire lives. Their entire families have dreamed of it. The infrastructure that helped make you successful has dreamed about what that moment will be. To come in and go bang, bang, bang with dinger, dinger, dinger is absolutely incredible work. Let's keep it in the NL Central with our headlines here. We'll go with the next one. Going Owen for the news that the Pirates moved Paul Skeen's scheduled start back 3 days as the struggling ace gets extra rest amidst the worst stretch of his major league career, almost as bad as some of the paparazzi pictures out there where he doesn't necessarily look like he's in the best shape.
He looks chonky.
Yeah, he looks, for an athlete. I'm just saying, now we're body shaming. I don't know. What are we doing? Are we going home for this?
Let me just say, I think anybody's body would look bad next to Livy Dunn, but it still wasn't great. I think there's two fair and accurate ways to look at this with Paul Skeens. One is when the standard is perfection, then everything else is going to look bad. Your body and your pitching stat line as well. When the standard is National League Rookie of the Year and National League Cy Young in year 1 and year 2, and anything less than that in year 3 is going to look bad. Yes, that's true, that the standard and the expectation of Paul Skeens is perfection. But also at the same time, it is fair to be concerned that even though those concerns might be emphasized based off of what he's already accomplished, it is fair to be concerned when his ERA is 5. I think you'd be concerned about any starting pitcher in Major League Baseball having that kind of ERA. I think you'd be concerned about any starting pitcher that had that kind of drop in velocity. Any starting pitcher who got pulled after 65 pitches after a dramatic drop off in velo. Yes, those are all very fair concerns. And I think it's a reminder in sports, in Major League Baseball, nothing is guaranteed. Even somebody who looked like the safest of all bets in Paul Skeens having that drop off in year 3. Yes, absolutely. It is wildly concerning. As is that hit there. That was a scary little hit.
Paul Skeens is broken right now. I'm not concerned. I do give this a bit of a wow, and like not a wow in a great way. It's more a wow, like a wow. Okay, but I give it a bit of a wow. I think to me though, look, it's not that you're in a slump. Everybody's going to have a slump. It's a bad year. I understand that. How do you break out of it? There has to be a process. There has to be something. I've been lucky enough in my life to have some friends that played Major League Baseball, and they all talk about the fact that when you are in it, when you're in one of those slumps, it is the hardest thing in the world to figure out what it takes, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, all of those things combined. How do you break out of those types of slumps? It's really difficult. So I'm interested and I'm slightly concerned, but my concern isn't the fact that he's playing poorly right now. My concern is that when you are in that sort of a slump, you've got to find some magical elixir that gets you out of it. All right. You can buy all the magical elixir you want if you're Devin Witherspoon. The Seahawks cornerback picked up a 4-year, $132 million extension with over $101 million guaranteed. Highest paid corner in NFL history. We going Owen for this?
Absolutely going Owen. That is a big fat wow. Thank you. From the Seattle Seahawks. First of all, good on the Seahawks for locking up Devin Witherspoon. He is invaluable to this defense, and we know that this defense is invaluable to this team. That combined with a couple of big performances from Sam Darnold is the reason why the Seahawks won the Super Bowl last year. You invest in your best players. Good on Seattle. The other wow is the fact that Trent McDuffie just signed a 4-year deal worth $124 million. He signed that deal in March with the Rams. That then in March, 5 months ago, was the richest contract in NFL history for a cornerback. We have almost a 10% increase in the cornerback market in just the span of 5 months. That is astonishing. So if you are, any other contract needy cornerback in the National Football League right now, you're looking at the deal that Devin Witherspoon just signed and you're saying, I'll sit back and wait, because if I'm going to get $8 million extra dollars if I just wait a couple extra months, sure, I'm willing to do that.
I just want to remind everybody that, Charles Robinson told me over a year ago that at some point there's expectations internally within the league that the salary cap in the next few years will eventually jump over $500 million. It's going to need to, because you look at the amount of money that is going out there for some of these. Like, we always sit there and say, you can't pay quarterbacks. Well, the numbers show you actually can't pay anybody and win. And this is just another example of when you have great talent, you have to pay them. So it's an interesting situation to be in, but certainly Christian Gonzalez turning around, looking at there, making sure that he gets paid. Let's get one more in. Scotty Scheffler dog walks the field at the FedEx St. Jude Championship in Memphis. Finishes at 17 under, 8 strokes better than second place. We going Owen for Scotty's first win since January?
Absolutely going Owen, because it's always a wow watching great players do great things in their respective sports, and surely Scotty Scheffler is quickly becoming one of the greats. It's great to see a great player break out of a slump, which is what Scotty Scheffler has been in. And it's also great to watch people do things just significantly better than everybody else. 8 strokes ahead of the field in second place is absolutely astonishing. So Awesome for Scotty Scheffler to kind of get that off of his back and get back into the win column in dramatic fashion.
I mean, it speaks to the expectations we have for Scotty that I say going 0 for the first win since January. We're treating it like, well, he hasn't had wins since January. Like, oh my God, what's wrong with Scotty? It just speaks to his dominance. Also, he took Rory behind the woodshed and reminded him who daddy is, because Rory finished 25 strokes behind Scotty, finishing in 66th place out of 68 players. So Rory had to forget. Yeah, we're going to go 0 for Rory, who owes everybody a drink for making us watch that round of golf. All right, from going 0, wow, some of the biggest moves we've seen. We saw a huge move involving one former Washington Commander. We'll break down the Washington football team coming up next with an expert, Anthony Armstrong, going to join us.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May, because your heart is aflutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with AJ Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, you know he's getting the ball. You know Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, yeah, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
Last week, the Commanders put out the practice video you see right there. A beautiful ball from Jaden to newcomer Stephon Diggs. That duo has everybody in the D.C. metro area excited about their team this season. Pleased to be joined now by co-host of Believe Commanders, former NFL wide receiver Anthony Armstrong joins us. All right, so Jaden and Diggs didn't play in the preseason game over the weekend, but let's start there. Like, what's it take to build chemistry? How excited are you for that duo?
Number one, thanks for having me. But I am super excited for this duo just because of what Stephon Diggs is going to bring to this offense. Veteran leader. He knows how to get open in any type of coverage, man, press, zone. He's going to find those areas for Jaden Daniels to hit him, and it's going to make it a lot easier for Jaden to operate. Then he's also joined Terry McLaurin. So we already know Terry, what he can do with this offense. Now you get him a true number 2 on the opposite side. It's like Batman and Robin, Superman, and who goes with Superman? I don't even know. But those duo right there, they can put up a lot of points and put up a lot of yards for this offense. And this is what Jaden needs coming off of a pretty rough 2025 season. He needs to have it a little bit easier for him in 2026.
Yeah, calling someone, the Lois Lane to someone else's Superman doesn't have the same kind of like Batman and Robin feel, but I guess that would be a sidekick. If we're talking Jaden Daniels, we have to talk about the reason why he has been in the headlines over the last couple of days. You see the helmet behind me. I went to LSU. I covered LSU football for several years. Thank you very much. I was there in New York City for Jaden Daniels' Heisman ceremony. I love Jaden Daniels, but I know the LSU perspective of the recent news of him sending the cease and desist letter to LSU to stop using his NIL for the usage of number 5. We all know the story. We've talked about it for the last couple of days. What's the Commander perspective of that? Are Commander fans supporting him in this? Are they kind of annoyed that this is an off-season distraction? What's been the Commander conversation?
We're all focused on this season, and whenever that came out, it was one of those little speed bumps and hiccups that we weren't expecting. But I think Jaden handled it well. He quickly released a statement saying, "Look, I'm focused on this season. I'm focused on getting ready for this season," and then that's what he should do. Now should he be fighting for the number 5 and that jersey going on back at LSU? That's a whole other conversation. But frankly, right now, focusing on the season is number one, and that's what the fans want him to do. That's what I want him to do. And I think that's what that coaching staff want him to do. But they're going to support him in whatever way. But ultimately, let your team handle this off the field and the NIL thing. But this is big business nowadays. Back in my day, look, I went to West Texas A&M. I'm in the Hall of Champions. They didn't even offer to retire my number. I think they gave it away as soon as I was gone. So I can't relate specifically, but I think that, hey, he's focused on the season and he's going to do just fine. They'll figure out this whole NIL LSU thing at the end of the day.
So that being said, let's get to Jaden on the field, right? Because a year ago right now, it was a given. He had been anointed future superstar, future MVP, that guy in every possible way. Last year, injuries and then limited playing time wasn't the same. Where are you on Jaden Daniels going into this season?
Oh, he's coming back with a vengeance. I think he's a guy that he holds that grudge kind of like a Kobe Bryant, like a Michael Jordan does. He'll be real silent. He'll smile in your face, but deep down, he really wants to get back at you. And you look at it, the two quarterbacks that were drafted right there around him, Drake May and Caleb Williams. One is on the cover of the Madden 27, and the other one was just in the Super Bowl. So all the comparisons are there. Jaden Daniels is ready to bounce back. He's got a new offense. He's got new weapons on offense, and he's got this hunger deep down inside that you will see him return to the top of the quarterbacks in this league. And frankly, I think he'll get back to the playoffs this season.
I hope he does, frankly, because this league was really, really fun in his rookie season, watching him play, the way that he was playing in his rookie season. But he doesn't have a lot of ramp up time. Looking at the schedule, open the season at Philly and then at the Cowboys and then at home against the reigning Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. That is a brutal way to start the season. What is the expectation and what is the importance level for the Commanders to get started, or get on a good start with that murderer's row that you have in the first 3 weeks?
Dan Quinn has approached this offseason with the right mentality and letting these players know they do have to get to a hot start. You listed it off. That's a hell of a way to start the season. Division rivals on the road, and then you get the Super Bowl champions at home. Look, that's not easy. But what Washington has in their favor and on their side is the unexpected, what's going to happen on offense, what's going to happen on defense. We haven't seen Durante Jones other than this one preseason game. You haven't seen David Blau call an offense other than this one preseason game. So frankly, we're going to lean on the side of having a little bit of variety and surprise. So if you can take advantage of that before playing your first repeat opponent in week 9 against Philly, hey, if you can run off some 7 games and get the best win total you can in that point, now you got to worry about being able to self-scout, adjust for the second half of the season. My bold prediction is that these guys come out 3-0 in the division outside of these first 7 games. They get Dallas, they get Philly, they get New York. And frankly, those other teams have to play those tough opponents at the second half of the season. So it could work out for Washington if they get some wins early.
So you mentioned the new coordinators, and I'll be honest, I'm consistent on this. 2 new coordinators always makes me nervous, right? So you mentioned you got David Blau as the new offensive coordinator and Durante Jones is the new defensive coordinator. Which of those 2 has a heavier lift in front of them right now? Who's got sort of more that they've got to get done?
Man, I didn't want to reference the 2025 statistics, but they were both in the bottom of the league. I mean, the defense was horrible. It was not good. And you didn't know if it was the Jimmies or the Joes or the X's and the O's. And they've made changes in both, bringing in all types of new defenders on the edge, bringing in new linebackers. They drafted Sonny Styles, and they've added some key additions in the secondary as well. Durante is going to have a defense that is going to bring a lot of surprise. They're going to, attack from multiple angles, and you're not going to know who's going to be blitzing at the end of the day. They have a pretty heavy load just because of how, what the powerful offenses they're going to have to go against. I mean, Dallas, they have 2 top-tier receivers. Philly is going to do what they do. So they're going to have to find a way to slow some people down. I think Jaden and that offense, and frankly, if I'm David Blau, give me Jaden Daniels, right? I think that I can go out there and call some plays, and they're going to get open and make some things happen. Now, it's going to still be tough on David because you got to deal with different attitudes and you got to deal with different personalities. But all offseason, the word has been collaboration and collaborative. He's done a great job of talking to coaches and players and getting buy-in on this system so that it's easier for him to roll things out there. But everything's good so far, right? We got to see what happens September 4th whenever they go up against Philly, and that will really tell the story.
So it is fantasy draft season, and we here at Yahoo Sports take fantasy football very seriously. So, who is somebody on this Commanders roster that you feel like is maybe flying under the radar, isn't getting talked about a lot, but could have a big fantasy boom potential?
I just actually got a fantasy draft coming up here at the end of the month over there on Yahoo. So shout out to y'all. That's convenient. I got my eyes on a Chig Okonkwo. All right. Chig Okonkwo, tight end, new addition from Tennessee. He is filling in for Zach Ertz. Now, if you know, past 2 seasons, Zach Ertz was one of the favorite targets for Jaden Daniels. Now, if you have some of that same ability and that same trait, plus you have some athleticism that Chig brings, he's going to bring run after the catch. And I think that safety blanket should be good for Jaden. Plus the additions on offense will open some things up. And plus you may see Chig line up out wide. He may get some different targets in different areas, make him a more pass catching threat. So Chig Okonkwo, he's going to be joining my team if I get the chance in this upcoming fantasy football draft.
No, that's amazing and electric. Stick with fantasy football on Yahoo. It's the best. There's a reason that we love it. All right, the Commanders take on the Dolphins in the preseason. We saw that Marcus Mariota obviously came out of that game injured. I think that's a concern for everybody. But other than that, what was your biggest takeaway from what you saw in the first preseason game for this Commanders football team?
Let's start on the offensive side. You saw some variety, right? The past couple of seasons, things have been pretty stale and predictable. And now you're seeing different formations. You're seeing running attack. And one thing that really jumped on offense was those 2 rookie running backs, Robert Henry Jr. and Kaytron Allen over there out of Penn State, and then UTSA for Robert Henry Jr. They really lit it up on the ground. They ran all over that Miami defense, put the ball in the end zone for both of them. And I think that's going to make it difficult for the coaches to really decide how they want to build out this 53. Then on the defensive side, the first drive wasn't too exciting, 15 plays and an eventual touchdown for the Dolphins. But what I did love seeing was that they got their hands on the football. 3 interceptions from a defense last year. I don't think they had 3 picks over the first half of the year. They had 3 picks. Yes, it was a preseason game. Yes, they were backup quarterbacks, but a win is a win, and it feels good to get some good things going for you for once. So I think they're making some good strides, and we're going to see how it carries over into the second game.
You mentioned earlier how bad the Washington defense was last year, and it was bad. Offensively, you can rationalize, right? Jaden Daniels was banged up. That's fair to kind of point that to be the reason why the offense took a step back. But with a defensive head coach, it's really hard to justify the defense being as bad as it was last season. With that being said, how hot is Dan Quinn's seat right now?
You know, I think you got a little simmer going on right there. Not too hot to where he's going to be gone by the bye week. I don't think it's anything like that. I do think Adam Peters and Josh Harrison crew understand, going back to the fact you do have 2 new coordinators, but I also think Dan Quinn is the right leader for this situation. Think about it in his past in Atlanta. He had a young offensive coordinator in Kyle Shanahan. He was also big in bringing up Mike McDaniel. So, yeah, he had the 28-3, but you can learn from those things. Now he's in a situation where he's able to empower these coaches and help uplift them. So is it on a little bit of a simmer? Sure, because you have to win in this league. You can't continue to wallow around the bottom, but he's had the best of both worlds, let's say. NFC Championship, 5-12 season. This year 3 is going to really let you know where this culture is. But the way he's built this team, let me tell you, he changed the culture where he can bring in big names like a Bobby Wagner. He never had that happen in Washington for years. Now, some of those players are leaving, and the players that they brought in initially, like a Frankie Louvu, they're the leaders. Jeremy Reeves, they're your leaders. So year 3 is going to be a big tell, but I think it's on a slight simmer, but I think the players understand that too. So they're going to show up for Dan Quinn this year.
Somebody that had a good year last year for Washington, Von Miller, had 9 sacks. Now he leaves the Commanders to go to the Cowboys, division rival. You saw him last year. How do you assess that fit for Dallas?
Well, if he gets to do what he wants to do and only jump out there on third downs, then it'll work out well for him. That was once again another defense that frankly wasn't too good. And they're trying to improve. I mean, they've got Quentin Williams locked up. They brought in Christian Parker, and then now they bring in Von Miller. He's from the DeSoto area, so he's right down the road. So it's good for him to go and finish up his career with his hometown team. I know that's probably something that he wanted to check off his bucket list, but ideally, going up against Dallas from a Washington standpoint, hopefully you don't have to see Von Miller that much. I think it's a good fit for Dallas, but situationally, he's going to be a premier pass rusher, always on third downs. But can they stop somebody else with the running game? Can they keep some people out of the red zone? Can they convert on third downs? We're going to see. But yeah, I think it's good for him. It's a good fit for Dallas.
Before we get you out of here, Anthony, how do you rank the hierarchy of the NFC East?
You got to give respect to Philly because they've been up at the top. And then I put Dallas. Dallas is at 2. And then Washington would be 3. And then New York, they got to bring up the rear right there. But I think it's pretty close between Dallas and Washington. Obviously, both teams had a rough 2025 season on defense. But Dallas has that powerful offense. So Washington can step up their defense and find a way to beat Dallas, and then they're going to get to see what they do week 1 against Philly. Things could get shaken up pretty quickly, but coming into the season, I got to give respect to the Eagles. I don't do that often, but I will do it now. I got to put them at the top.
You guys can listen to him on Believe Commanders. Follow him. Love the Twitter X handle, Rated Armstrong. That is well done by you. Anthony Armstrong, we appreciate your time, your insights, man. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Best of luck this season.
Appreciate it. Y'all have a good one.
That's great stuff from Anthony. Going to be a wild year for what I think is one of the toughest teams to predict. All right, we're also trying to predict what's happening with the Giants. Should they be hitting the panic button? We'll tell you next.
We're going to talk about Alan Graves, who looks like a hit of a draft prospect for the Toronto Raptors. Looks sensational, man.
I thought the shot was there. You talked about the percentage, but also most of the shots were off of the catch above the break. Just a good sign in terms of his positioning.
And I think for the Toronto Raptors, a team that already has so much size, adding Alan Graves to this, it almost feels like some of those championship Raptors teams.
I can't predict the future, and I know that it's a long process, and it's not just my decision. But at the same time, I'm going to give the doctors and the coaches every single opportunity they can to let me be out there week 1. And I don't want to miss that game because that's the team that won the division while we were gone. And you want to be out there and ready to go with your teammates. And so hopefully the doctors and the coaches give me the green light, and I'm able to go out there with my guys and compete against one of the best teams in the league.
They had to have better details on the back end because that was their greatest qualm last year, especially on third down. They were just a mess. Bad tackling, bad angles, slow to react. And this is a great stat from Next Gen Stats. First opportunity depth of tackle. So the first time they're able to tackle somebody, what's the depth of tackle? Theirs was the second highest in the league last year, 4.9. The Cowboys were the only ones higher. So they were late to react. So there was a perfect stat to match the eye test there. But that just has to get better. More than anything, that's what I'm focusing on with this defense.
I know people talk trash about the PFL and say, oh, because you're in the PFL, you're nothing. The level of fighters in the PFL are just as high as the people in the UFC. And the reason you don't understand that, the reason you don't think so is because you're a casual. You're not a true MMA fan. You don't understand the game as much as you hope or you think you do. If I ever gave a damn about what somebody thought up until this moment, I would not be the champion.
Pat Leonard tweets out, Jaxson Dart is going to the blue medical tent after getting smoked by the Vikings' Jay Ward on a blitz. Dart never looked to that side of the field to his right as he took the snap. Tyrone Tracy missed the block on the blitz. Calvin Austin had single coverage with no safety over. In Pat's next tweet, he pointed out that Dart came out of the medical tent and back into the game. Much has been made of this. I want to stress this, as every smart football mind has told me over the last 24 hours. It's not on Jaxson Dart that he got absolutely just destroyed. That was on Tyrone Tracy, who did a terrible job right there. So not on Jaxson Dart, but he goes to the ground and takes this hit. New regime, same story. What's our concern level at this point for Jaxson Dart to stay out of the blue tent?
And look, I'm not in Giants camp. I don't know how secure Tyrone Tracy's, spot is on this roster, but that's a cuttable offense in the preseason. You get your quarterback blown up like that, that's on you. You don't have a place in our roster. The concern level is incredibly high because Jaxson Dart found himself in the blue tent several times last year, found himself in the blue tent again in the preseason. That's concerning. I think the concern level for me, though, is made even higher by the fact that I don't think that Jaxson Dart truly understands the gravity of this situation. That hit that he took, that was not his fault. But the reason why he's here, the reason why he was in the blue tent several times last year, the reason why Jaxson Dart and concussions have been in the same sentence so many times since his NFL debut is largely because of him, because he won't slide, because he does want to go one-on-one with a defender, because he doesn't just, cut his losses. He tries way too hard sometimes to be Superman. So while that specific hit was not his fault, we are here largely because Jaxson Dart won't protect himself. And with the comments that he made after the game saying, I don't get it. Every time I get hit, I find myself in the blue tent. You can't be talking like that when you are a franchise quarterback, face of an organization. You can't be talking about that, especially on the heels of your running back, Kim Scadaboo, talking on his stream in the offseason about how he thinks CTE is fake. With all of the recent events, unfortunately, that have happened recently in the NFL, you can't talk about head injuries all laissez-faire and loosey-goosey like that. That's not how franchise quarterbacks talk. So, yes, I'm concerned about Jaxson Dart and the concussions, but I'm also concerned about the way that Jaxson Dart is speaking about it.
I think that's the most concerning part to me. Look, he's gone, according to one Twitter site yesterday, he's gone into the blue tent in 43% of the games that he has played in, if you count preseason and regular season games. So,
yikes.
Look, he's in the blue tent a lot. But here's the other side of it. When he says he's puzzled by the fact that he's continually sent to the blue tent, it shows he just doesn't get it. At the end of the day, the NFL has an obligation to be conservative when it comes to sending people into the blue tent. They now, especially in a world of optics, want everyone to look around and at least feel like we can all be comfortable knowing that in a CTE world, the NFL is doing everything they can to protect players by sending them into the blue tent. As has been pointed out, and as pointed out earlier with us, Chase Daniel said, when you reach for your head while you're on the ground, you're going into the blue tent. Dominique Foxworth has said, when you lay on the ground after a hit like that, you're going into the blue tent. There are obvious indicators we all know. It's a little like pass interference. The minute you're sitting in your living room and somebody says, I didn't turn his head around, that's pass interference. We all know these things. If you stay on the ground for a little extra time, if you reach for your head, if you make any sort of a move that makes somebody think you might have sustained a head injury, you go to the blue tent. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. So certainly it's safety. But when he says he's puzzled, and when he continues to have sort of a conspiracy theorist attitude to why he's going into the blue tent, it does at least lend more credence to the concern that he's not going to adjust when, where, how he takes his hits. This particular hit was not his fault. But getting to this point and going into the blue tent over and over and over again does at least speak to the way he approaches the game, Caroline, because he has put himself at risk repeatedly to take the types of hits that put you into the blue tent. When you say you're puzzled afterwards, you're speaking to what feels like you're blaming a conspiracy theory, not action. If you're blaming a conspiracy theory, not action, you don't have to change what you do. That concerns me.
His comments to me sounded a lot like a guy who wants to make less of a deal about it because he understands that quarterbacks who are concussion prone don't get second contracts. And we're now talking about how many, concussion scares Jaxson Dart has had, and we are only one preseason game into his second year in the National Football League. He wants to kind of temper those concerns because he understands what's at stake here. That this is his audition, his tryout for a $50+ million contract a year that might come in a second deal. He understands that. And look, I don't blame him for that. I don't blame him in the slightest. If I was a quarterback, if I had my future in this league on the line, I would also feel that type of way as well. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. It's all good, whatever it might be. But until Jaxson Dart can prove to me and can prove to all of us that he can take care of himself the way that a franchise quarterback needs to take care of himself in order for you to feel comfortable about giving him that second contract, I'm not gonna say, oh, I trust him, oh, I believe him, because it is a concern. It's a concern for 32 quarterbacks in the National Football League, but it's especially a concern for somebody who has had as many concussion scares as he has had in a very short NFL career. It also shows to me that I just don't know if he quite understands the gravity and the weight that a franchise quarterback's words carry. When you're a franchise quarterback, everything is your fault when things go bad, and everything is credit to everybody else when things go right. So in that moment, what I wanted to hear was a certain level of maturity that we just haven't gotten quite yet from Jaxson Dart. I wanted him to say, you know what, I have to take care of myself. It's on me. It's on me to make sure that all of my players, all of my guys know where they need to be in what moment. It's my fault. It's on me. I need to be better. Not blaming the medical staff, but praising the medical staff for making sure that he is taken care of and he is in tip-top 100% shape for the start of the season. Not blaming the medical staff, not blaming, to your point, the conspiracy theories, not blaming the perception or the conversation, but instead turning it on himself, whether he deserves it or not. That's what you have to do as a franchise quarterback. There is a certain level of on the field and off the field maturity that I need to see from Jaxson Dart in order to feel this level of confidence that he is the franchise quarterback for the New York Giants. We talk a lot about Jaxson Dart and everything that he did last season, but frankly, I think that Thursday night win over the Eagles is doing a lot of heavy lifting. If you break down the numbers, what Jaxson Dart did last season is not that far off of what Cam Ward did last season. And I don't think anybody believes, at least yet, that Cam Ward is the guy, the answer in Tennessee. So Jaxson Dart's going to have to do a whole lot of proving this season.
I mean, at this point, the Giants fan base and Giants media, particularly the way we're covering this team, we're talking about Jaxson Dart like he just had the sort of rookie season that Jaden Daniels had. He did not. So, look, It was good. There were good moments in the rookie season. I think there's plenty of good on film for Jaxson Dart. But to your point, Caroline, I'm not a cynic. I'm a realist. At the end of the day, I am at my core a realist. Just accept there are certain realities in everything that you deal with, whether you like them or not. Doesn't matter. If your job today is to shovel poop, then go shovel poop. That's just what you got to do. There are certain times in life you just do what you're supposed to do. For a quarterback that just took a hit, it is so easy. I am not a quarterback in the NFL. We all know that. But I could certainly stand up in front of a podium, and when somebody says, man, what happened in the blue tent? Easy answer. Gosh, man, I've got to do a better job of making sure I see what's coming. Got to do a better job of communicating everything. Can't put anybody at risk. If I'm at risk, my team's at risk. Wow, that wasn't hard. Play the game. At the end of the day, play the game. When people say, what about your playing style? Yeah, I've got to make sure that I'm out there for my team. That's the most important thing. So I'm going to continue to be aggressive because it's who I am. But I also have to make sure I'm taking care of myself, because if I'm not out there, I can't help my team win. Boy, it's not hard. Like quarterback talk, coach speak 101 is not a difficult course to pass, even for somebody that probably didn't have to go to a lot of college classes, right? Like it is easy to figure out the right thing to say. Jaxson Dart said, I'm puzzled. I don't know why they keep sending me into the tent. Really? Have you gone back and looked at every instance of when you were sent to the tent and really tried to pinpoint the why? Because if you did, as they have already done on Twitter over and over and over again, the reason you keep going to the tent is pretty clear. Life's not about changing the game. It's about playing the game. Playing the game better than anybody. And Jaxson Dart standing at the microphone and saying what he's saying, to your point, is the opposite of playing the game. It's him trying to come out and play the victim. And in that situation, it doesn't make any sense to me, Caroline. The Giants cannot win consistently with Jameis Winston as their quarterback. Jaxson Dart needs to accept that, and that needs to impact the way that he plays the position.
It does feel at times that Jaxson Dart speaks Twitter tough guy meathead much more fluently than he speaks franchise quarterback. And I don't care what you say. When you're a franchise quarterback, what you do off the field, how you carry yourself, and what you say, those things matter. It matters far more at the quarterback position than it matters at any other position. There is just a certain level of behavior and decorum that you have to have when you play that position, especially when you are in the meat grinder that is the New York media. And let's be real, if you win, when you win, a lot of those things don't matter as much. But when you lose, you get picked apart and prodded under a microscope. And I don't think either of us really believe that the Giants are going to do a whole lot of winning this year, at least not enough winning to, be a deodorant for the kind of stink that is sometimes the way that Jaxson Dart speaks or the way that Jaxson Dart plays. So I think that that's an important thing for him moving forward, especially in a year that is going to be under a microscope more so than maybe any other year with the New York Giants. And trust me, there was a lot of years under the microscope with the New York Giants.
Well, you and I do not have tremendous expectations for the Giants. Many media people do, and Giants fans do. So let's see how patient they are if Jaxson Dart puts himself at some level of risk. All right, plenty more to break down on quarterbacks in the NFL. But coming up, we are still rocking from the sale of the Lakers. We'll talk to Andy Kamenetzky next about what it all means.
And that's really what we get into with the first quarterback I want to talk about, Sam Levitt, transferring from Arizona State over to LSU. You're going to plug Sam Levitt into that system with his ability to create outside of structure, his ability to get yards. On the ground, I think you're going to see him really outperform where he's being drafted right now. In a Power 4 only format, I have him as QB5 right now.
We're in a very, very bad time for the perception of college football. There's a fatigue point that people keep debating. Is it because of NIL? Is it because of portal? Is it because of what's going on in Congress? And I think the average consumer, and there's still more average consumers that listen and watch this show than there are industry insiders. There is a fatigue point with perpetual revision of the postseason format. People aren't as stupid as the individuals in this industry seem to think that they are.
Who is your breakout candidate for this year?
Kind of think Isaiah Likely with the New York Giants is a really good candidate this year. Kind of wide receiver room that could rotate a little bit and be useful players, but they don't, to me, have one dynamic. Even Fields, who I like, I don't know that he's gonna be like a dynamic guy that right off the bus, round 3 rookie, leads the team in targets. I think that could actually be Isaiah Likely. Tight ends on their second contracts have been good bets to make. I think Likely is a good bet to make this year.
How is your recovery going?
It's going good. It's a long process. I think that's what I've learned throughout this entire thing. And so all I can do is be as great as I can be every single day. It's tough. You have to just maximize that day and then slowly get better and better as the year goes on. And so just having the guys back and getting to be back on the football field will kind of get me going in order to get ready for the season.
Just learned that Friday, August 21st, is Luka Doncic bobblehead night at Dodger Stadium. Awkward timing, but a cool bobblehead is still a cool bobblehead. The tweet signed AK, and that tells you that it was typed out by Andy Kamenetzky, who joins us now. TBD on whether or not he's going to be at that Friday night Luka bobblehead game. But what I do know is we'll dive into the awkwardness. Is this, you think, the last cross promotion we'll get for a while between the Lakers and Dodgers, given the sell of the Lakers?
I have no idea. I mean, we still need to make sure that those bobbleheads don't get seized as part of the investigation. Like there's still a week between now and this giveaway, so who knows? There's a lot that we are still figuring out right now with this sale. Nothing is off the table.
I'm glad that you say that because whenever the news of the sale broke, we were actually live on air. And I was like, wait, what? Like, guys, is this real? Is this The Onion? Did I just get totally punked on Twitter? So we were absolutely shocked. What was your reaction when you saw the news of the sale?
Stunned, wondering if for some reason Ramona Shelburne, my friend over at ESPN who broke the story, if her original tweet about the Lakers being sold 14 months ago for whatever reason hit the Twitter algorithms and was just being retweeted and retweeted because it was just like, wait, what? Like they were just sold to Mark Walter, who we all felt at the time we know a lot about insofar as being a businessman and somebody with a real connection to Los Angeles sports, the track records there with the Dodgers. The pockets seemed pretty damn deep. Like all of this, like it all felt complete. Like it felt like the Lakers were moving forward in that Dodgerified model. and that this transition was going to be one that Laker fans could be really excited about with the future. And then all of a sudden it's like, what the hell, man? Wait, what?
I mean, to your point, Andy, when the news broke, my first thought was like, man, I wonder if there was just a delayed closing on the sale. So now we're getting the closing of the sale that started. Like, that was my first thought. But now we see that it's all coinciding with the parallel SEC and federal investigation into insurance entities owned by Mark Walter's holding structures over loan and related party transaction disclosures. All of these things seem kind of wild. Should the NBA have been more aware of whatever is going on in Mark Walter's empire before they sold him the Lakers?
You know, this is an interesting question that I've actually been thinking about a lot. We talked about this a lot on the full episode of Locked On Lakers today that my brother Brian and I co-host. And like, Mark Walter has been investigated before, and his company has been investigated before. And when, for example, he bought the Dodgers, the finance writer, I believe his name is Andrew Sorkin, had written a piece about how this seems a little bit odd, like the structures of his business. And, you know, I think we in LA in particular were so excited because we knew the track record with Mark Walter and how much the Dodgers have succeeded, and the front office being so well run and very innovative, just tons and tons of smart people, and the payroll and all of that stuff. He felt like the perfect person for this. But if you look back, like Katie Baker, for example, The Ringer did a really good breakdown of Mark Walter, the businessman, and some of the things that should have been considered, if nothing else. Hey, are we sure this is okay? Looking back on it. That being said, though, the investigation into Mark Walter began in September of 2025. Then the sale, the final sale, the approval by the other owners around the league, that went through in late October. I cannot help but wonder if Mark Walter had not been, so it's clear, this is me wondering, this is not through reporting, anything like that, but I'm just trying to piece together how this happened. If Mark Walter had not been transparent about this investigation, because the news of it didn't break until last July, but the actual investigation itself began in September 2025. If this was something he was not transparent about with Adam Silver and his other owners, and then the news breaking, if that was the catalyst for this sale that seems very much under some degree of duress, and I wonder how much of this was being told, you need to do this ASAP.
Are you a Dodger fan as well, by any chance?
I'm not a Dodger fanatic, but my wife is, and I cover the team for 710 ESPN. I make regular appearances on there. So, and you know, I live in this city. I got tons of fans. I might as well be.
So if the NBA was, or people in Mark Walter's camp were saying you have to sell the Lakers, but he's not selling the Dodgers, what is the concern level of yourself and Dodger fans?
There are a lot of Dodger fans wondering whether there's going to be a second shoe that drops, because, I mean, frankly, I think it's become fair to wonder, does Mark Walter have the money that we all expected, like the actual liquidity, like how much of his net worth is on paper or at this point potentially leveraged, whether or not he really is as solvent an owner as everybody thought. Like when they made the deal, for example, with Shohei Ohtani that had, I believe, $680 million in deferred money at the time, and it's not the only deferred money deal the Dodgers have done, that was hailed as genius. And, you know, this visionary way of being able to get a guy like Shohei Ohtani, pay him that type of salary on top of the payroll that you already have, while still being able to maintain spending ability. And the school of thought was, you know, Shohei Ohtani is a money printing factory in and of itself. You know, you can take care of a lot of that on the back end, when by then some of the prospects the Dodgers have, they will be fully fledged players. And again, this will just continue the cycle of paying for itself. Now, I think it is at least fair to wonder how much of this business strategy was due to not having the money on hand. That everyone assume that you have, or just part of this net worth that may be more about on paper than in reality what you have.
I mean, there are plenty of trolls and haters out there to the Dodgers system that are hoping this is all some sort of a Ponzi scheme, and now all these athletes that are pushing money down the line never get it, and everybody laughs all the way. I mean, come on, we are the trolls in here are going to be out on this one.
Have the Dodgers become unpopular recently? I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, it's a very I'm trendy. It's just cutting edge. It's like the band you haven't heard of. Yeah.
Have people grown resentful of the Dodgers spending? Like, is this something I should be on?
Yeah.
Like something to keep
Not
my
that I've
ear
heard.
to
I
the
think everybody's
streets?
just very chill about all of it.
It's a little itty bitty thing. All right, so ownership change makes everybody nervous, makes fans nervous, but also can make stars nervous. What does all of this mean for Luka?
Well, I guess the glass half full version of this is Luka's entering his 9th season, and Bob Iger and Josh Kushner will represent his 5th and 6th majority owner, which is frankly insane. Like the amount of ownership turnover that Luka Doncic has experienced as a superstar in relatively short time is crazy. Hopefully that means he has an ability to take it in stride. He has expressed, excitement still about being a Laker and wanting to meet Iger and Kushner. And I don't claim to know Luka super well, but the read I get on him is if the team continues to be well run, they're competitive, he'll be fine. I don't think he is inherently as much of a boat rocker, or while his imprint is on this current roster by multiple accounts, reports, appearances. Walker Kessler, for example, was an acquisition that Luka was very much behind. It's been well known since the moment he arrived that he wanted a frontline center. So I think he is somebody that is willing to let the front office know what he wants, but he doesn't seem like somebody that necessarily is all up in their business. I think as long as the team is well run and they're competitive, Luka doesn't seem to me somebody that's going to get super caught up in this. But it also remains to be seen what kind of owners Iger and Kushner are going to be and how successful.
I also love how in that statement he just first name bases Josh Kushner and Bob Iger, but I guess they can be bestie pops at this point. No LeBron, obviously. Feels like some of the personal matters that Luka has been dealing with off the court are resolved. How much pressure is on him this year to have an MVP caliber season, at least win a playoff series or two?
It's funny, actually. This is also something that we recently talked about on an episode of Locked On Lakers. This Lakers team, I think, is going to be good. I think they're going to be a legitimately good team. I think they're going to be top 6 in the West. I don't expect them to be in the play-in or battling to be in the playoffs. But I don't think by any reasonable measure either, they're truly championship contender, like inner circle contender. I did not expect after one off season, particularly one with this much makeover and new faces, that they would even realistically be in that place. So for the time being, until this team legitimately should be able to win a championship, I actually think there's more pressure on the front office and now new ownership than there actually is on Luka himself. As long as Luka keeps performing the way he has, and I believe it's now 6 straight first team All NBA nods, I don't feel like the pressure is necessarily on Luka right now as it is for those around Luka, whether you're talking about Walker Kessler and now Austin Reeves making triple his salary to prove that they are worth the literal prices that the Lakers have paid for them, and for the front office to put those pieces around Luka more than there's actually pressure on Luka himself.
So with the team stepping out of the shadow of LeBron, but LeBron coming back on Christmas Day, what's that like from the Lakers?
Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
Really creative work by the schedule makers, man.
Out of nowhere.
First appearance on Chris. Wow.
What's the Lakers fan base and organization sort of reaction going to be to this moment?
I think in the beginning, like LeBron's starting 5 introduction and the inevitable tribute video, I think will be somewhere between polite and sincere applause, maybe a standing O during the tribute video. A large sect of Laker fans, I hear from them in all sorts of ways, whether you're talking about on Twitter at Cam Brothers or Locked on Lakers audience, 710 ESPN, call-in, stuff like that. There's a large sect of Laker fans that never really grew attached to LeBron, never really warmed to him. There was never really a connection. And a lot of them, frankly, for the last few years have been ready for him to go and ready to turn the page, particularly now that you have Luka in his prime. But I don't think they necessarily hated LeBron either. Like, he did bring a championship. He did play a big role in helping shepherd the organization through the death of Kobe Bryant, which obviously nobody expected and was quite tragic among Laker fans in this city. But there was never really a connection. So that being the case, I think it'll be somewhere in the polite in the beginning, and then he'll get booed a lot when he touches the ball. But that happens a lot when big stars, particularly ones that played for the Lakers, visit anyway. So I think it will be fine. But Laker fans, by and large, the sense I get, were ready to turn this page and move on from LeBron.
I mean, clearly there's a lot of intrigue with that matchup. There's a lot of intrigue with this Lakers season as a whole, which brings expectation. In your opinion, whose seat is hotter or whose leash is shorter between Rob Pelinka and JJ Redick?
Oh, definitely Rob Pelinka. I think absolutely Rob Pelinka. JJ Redick, I think, has done more to acquit himself to begin with. In his 2 seasons with the Lakers, they've won 50 or more both times. He's worked through a lot of injuries. He's dealt with a lot of roster turnover and trades. And there has not been a lot of continuity or stability during JJ's time coaching the team. And I think you can still tell he is a new coach and he's still learning. And he is a very eager learner. But overall, I don't think JJ has done a lot that would put him on the hot seat to begin with. And it also does not hurt that he has a relationship with Bob Iger. He was actually a guest on the Mind the Game podcast back in 2021, where JJ talked about their relationship. They got to know each other when Iger was then a Clippers season ticket holder and a Clipper fan, which is hilariously awkward now. But they developed a relationship then. I don't think JJ's seat's going to be particularly hot. Rob Pelinka, though, he has worked for a long time needing to, first and foremost, keep his job security under an owner, Jeannie Buss, with whom he was extremely close. Jeannie, I think, very often tended to hire and create her inner circle based on personal relationships more than professional acumen. And Rob had done a very good job preserving his gig under those circumstances. He is now working for 2 owners, and whoever becomes part of that ownership group that presumably he has little to no relationship with. And Rob's reputation around the league is, he's not a terrible GM, but you could do better. And it's always been thought that the Lakers could do better than Rob Pelinka, but what was keeping him in that seat was that relationship with Jeannie Buss. I don't think, regardless of whether Jeannie has a governor title or not moving forward, she is by definition not the ultimate shot caller. And I think Rob will have to do a lot more to prove himself moving forward than JJ.
It's great stuff as always. You can check him out on Locked On Lakers. You can follow him on X at Cam Brothers. You can also hear him on ESPN 710 all over the place. Be sure to hang out with him. Andy Kamenetzky. Andy, we really appreciate your time and your insight. Let us know next time if you're going to buy the Lakers in the next 12 months. If you could just give us a heads up so we're not shocked, we'd appreciate that.
For so many reasons, I will be happy to let you know if that happens. Like just the idea of waking up and realizing my bank account and clout allows for this to happen. Trust me, I will be on your show. Done. Don't worry about it.
This is what
it'll be a casual 15 billion. Who knows?
It's apparently easier to come across than we realized.
If you got it, flaunt it. That's what I'm saying. Future NBA owner Andy Kamenetzky. I'm manifesting that for him. Appreciate you, Andy. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, guys.
It's great stuff from Andy. The opposite of great stuff is what we saw from both quarterbacks in Cleveland. The question is, what does it mean for the Browns next? We'll answer that.
Losing Laramie Tunsil, top 3 left tackle in the NFL, it's a huge deal because now this offensive line goes from interesting to maybe bad. Now, Brandon Coleman, who's my X factor for them, he did start all of 2024, his rookie year, and they were one of the best offenses in the NFL that season. If you want to be this more, under center, deep drop back passing game, you're going to need your protection to be really good, as opposed to like we're in the gun and getting it out in the horizontal raid with Cliff Kingsbury. Who there tempts you the most, and is it Drake May because your heart is a flutter still for Drake May?
It is Drake May. If you draft Drake May, you ask yourself, are we still on the front 9 with AJ Brown? Is he going to win the breakup with the Eagles? Is Romeo Doubs, did they overpay for him and overslot him, or is he really an impact player? It's going to hurt me when I don't draft Drake May this year. I don't think I'm going to do it very often. I may not even do it at all.
The thing with Derrick Henry, which I really admired with him with the Titans for sure. You see 22 on the field, you know he's getting the ball. You know Derrick Henry's coming. Derrick Henry was the focal point of that offense for years. But guess what? Still, nobody stopped him. With Derrick Henry, yeah, he's another year older, but he does not look another year closer to falling off. He does not look another year closer to slowing down. And he seems like he can go for as long as he wants to.
Darian Mensah was not the only player who left Duke that day to go to Miami. His best receiver, Cooper Barkate, went with him. He was the best receiver in the Ivy League at Harvard in 2024. He graduates from Harvard. He hops in the portal, goes to Duke, and has 1,100 receiving yards at Duke last year. Well, now he goes to Miami.
Harvard to Miami. How can you not love this sport right now? This is fantastic.
Todd Monken said his quarterbacks played well in the Browns preseason opener, especially happy for and complimentary of Deshaun Watson. Still a week left in this competition. Clearly a lot of work to do. Deshaun got his work with the first teamers as we knew and expected. Caroline going 11 of 15 through that portion. Then Shedeur came in against the backups going 6 of 11. You see the stat line there. Both of these quarterbacks threw a pick. Neither of them threw a touchdown. I don't know here. What stood out to you most about their final lines and performances?
I think it was less about what stood out about their performances, because I don't expect either of these quarterbacks to be great this season. And I know what great is. The definition of that for both of these guys is different, just with Deshaun making the money he's making and the experience he has in this league. But still, based off of their own respective expectations, I don't expect either of them to, totally just blow us away. So them both having a fairly pedestrian at best outing in the preseason wasn't overly surprising to me. It was the way that Todd Monken spoke about Deshaun Watson that stands out the most to me. Because Deshaun Watson didn't do anything spectacular, but Todd Monken is talking about Deshaun Watson like he's done something spectacular. And I think this just kind of goes along with the idea that the Browns have really been soft launching Deshaun Watson all offseason. Just kind of warming everyone up to the idea of Deshaun Watson being the starting quarterback. And it feels so clear and so obvious to me that no matter what happens in the preseason, really, it's going to be Deshaun Watson's job.
It's funny to me. I'll speak in just absolute stereotypes here, but so often men like to handle everything logically, not emotionally. Like men get into conflict and immediately we want to be logical. Men want to talk about anybody that's ever been in a relationship. How often do you look at your significant other and they're talking to you about all these things they feel at work, and you're immediately like, well, my logic head tells me this and this and this. For some reason, as logical as so many of us are in life, when it comes to our favorite sports teams, we're just on feels, which is why for me, I've been all logic all the way through this Deshaun process of saying, okay, I think they've made it pretty clear that Deshaun's going to be the starter. Even effusive praise for mediocre play, to me, equals the building up of your future starting quarterback. Todd Monken coming out and saying, hey, I thought we played good. It was so cool to watch him play. I get all the frustration. Fans himself for it to come back and work like he did is an unbelievable credit to him. I thought he really functioned at a high level. It's just more and more praise. So if we all just take our feelings out of it and we just look at the logic of a quarterback that's already been told he was starting week 1, and now a quarterback that's getting praised for just simply playing mediocre quarterback. Like, let's not get it twisted. Deshaun Watson did not look as good as Ty Simpson, right? Like, it was
right.
fine. But Todd Monken made fine into something bigger because he has to prop up his eventual starting quarterback.
We're giving him credit for working hard? That's what the standard is? That's where the praise comes from? Credit to him for the hard work. Why? He gets paid $40 million a year. He better be working hard. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Isn't that just like part of the deal? There are a lot of people who make a lot less money who also have to work hard in their respective jobs. But how many people get cookies for working hard? I don't want to hear it. It is so obvious and clear what the Browns are doing, boosting up Deshaun Watson's stock. So everybody in Cleveland is like, yeah, you know what? Deshaun has been working hard. He does it. No, you don't get credit for doing what's a given in this league. It is so transparent, the messaging coming out of Browns camp.
Yeah, and by the way, how many quarterbacks are just lazy bums also? I don't know. But now we get this situation where the natural response to this is, well, Shedeur gets next week. He gets week 2. Remember, preseason is only 3 games long. The third game, most teams rest their starters. So this battle is going to be decided in week 2. I'm looking at Dan Orlovsky. There's clips everywhere right now of Dan on social media saying Deshaun played faster. He was more decisive. He went through his reads faster. It looks like Deshaun has won this job. Well, Shedeur, in order to win this job, is going to have to play against the Bills starters in a game that the Bills are likely to do some basic game planning for, and he's going to have to vastly outshine Deshaun Watson in that process. Caroline, I can't make that math. Like, this is why I said last week I believed that it was already basically a done deal. Deshaun was going to have to go out and suck in order for this to become a close quarterback battle. All Deshaun did was go out and look meh, and not we, you and I, but the Browns organization is propping up meh to the point that now I'm looking at it saying, unless we see some 18 of 19 4-touchdown performance from Shedeur, I don't know what he can do to actually win this job from Deshaun. I think Deshaun Watson's the starting quarterback for the Browns week 1.
I think the Browns are in a really tough position because they are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Let's say Deshaun Watson gets the starting job because you feel like he gives you the best opportunity to win football games, which, let's be fair, he probably does. And for a new coaching staff, that's probably what they want to do, is start winning football games, especially with all the pieces around the quarterback. Let's say Deshaun has a really good season, and however you want to define that, whether that's the Browns are above 500, whether that's the Browns are actually an interesting football team, whether that's the Browns make the postseason, you define what success is for Deshaun Watson. Well, I don't think the Browns are going to give Deshaun Watson another contract. He's going to be 31 at the beginning of the season, and they've already invested a lot and haven't gotten a lot out of Deshaun Watson. So I don't think that's a smart football business decision to give Deshaun Watson another contract. So, but what are you going to do? Put Shedeur Sanders out there, even if you don't think he's the better quarterback? Well, everybody in the locker room probably knows that too. So I think best case scenario for the Browns is either one of two things. Either they suck and they're terrible and they get the number 1 overall pick and find their quarterback of the future, or Shedeur Sanders balls out and he is your future quarterback. I just don't see any best case scenario for the Browns where Deshaun Watson is their starting quarterback.
Look, the Browns season to me is pretty simple right now. Deshaun Watson is going to be the starting quarterback week 1. There will be a revolving door between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders while they flounder through much of this season, trying to figure out what the hell to do week in and week out, trying to get the best possible solution to win. Throughout the course of that process, they win 5 games, maybe 6 games, because there's still some talent on this roster. But let's say they win 5 games. That puts them probably picking 8th or 9th in the draft. And even though they have 2 first-round draft picks, so do some other teams. And even though they have the leverage to move up, other teams will be worse that are going to need a quarterback. Nobody's going to want to trade out of the first position overall. The Browns are going to get stuck not being able to draft a quarterback, and they're going to remain in quarterback purgatory. Like this, I got no ill will. I don't care one way or the other. This just feels like the most logical way it plays out, Caroline.
How bleak is that? How unfortunate is that? The most likely outcome is your team wins 6 games and you're not bad enough to find your quarterback of the future, and you find yourself in quarterback purgatory yet again.
Yeah, just remember the Jets only won 3 games last year and didn't get a quarterback. We'll be back tomorrow to keep breaking it down at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily.